Okay, everyone, I'm just continuing with part 2 of this video clip. It's keeping an eye on the time. It's Monday, 3rd of March 2025. I know everyone is watching my YouTube channel and Facebook page versus because of the court case and me basically just telling my story and bringing the facts to life. So I'm going to be continuing from the last video clip. So keep in mind, I'm a concealed individual and I'm being linked to relationship scams globally. I've been used for relationship love triangle, obviously. And I have not found it fun, by the way. But my case is definitely a criminal case, and I'm just articulating on the actual evidence. Okay, so welcome to Authentic Ingenuity Entrepreneur. My name is Mina. I'm the narrator for this video clip. Okay, so keeping in mind it's a global game, espionage is involved, so I must keep my evidence in the moment. So for everybody that's actually watching my YouTube channel and my social media platform. Okay, I was talking about the relationship scam, and we're starting off, the starting point is Moana. She's linked to what I'm going through. So all the other secret societies who have all joined forces against myself historically, linking themselves to the other relationship scams involving myself, okay? So unfortunately, I have to say things as it is, but I do know that the defendants involving this female have all joined forces. It's a criminal alliance, and they support this person, and the whole idea is to save their reputation from deceiving the public. Okay, so the game has been really, words can't really describe what I've gone through, but I'll just continue with the story. Okay, so Pastor King, like I already mentioned on the last video clip, he has a massive input in my life in general, spiritually. And like I said, I still love him and I respect him as my mentor, and yeah, just everything he was as a pastor of a big church. And a lot of people grew up under his ministry and gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the Holy Spirit ministry. And I believe God has used him mightily to train me in so many things, okay, spiritually. Okay, so he knows me really well spiritually. He'll never forget me. But life goes on, things changes. Don't forget he, just because a person is a pastor, he has, a family of his own, and if I recall rightly, one of his daughters not a Christian. But what I've gone through is so inhumane that other people have, they've judged me by my faults. They've judged me by, they've made me they've judged me by the Bible, basically. But these people, I don't know who they are. Other religions and cultures have taken advantage of abusing me. The inhumane persecution and torment that they've done to me as a female and as a godly woman of God is inhumane, and it's something that needs to be exposed, because in any generation, even in Jesus' generation, what happened to him back then, I'm quite sure everyone involved, with what they did to him, were punished, and laws were made so that it doesn't happen again. So those laws do still apply, although this new system I've been subject to is designed for people like myself, or being selected to be dehumanized, like what I've gone through, and what Henry has gone through. They're being used groomed by other people who are either making money out of it, or there's some kind of personal gain. But I will just carry on with the story. Okay, so this here is actually an exhibit in court too. These photos that I'm actually showing on my video clips. But these here are all the men in church back in the days, okay? So they're definitely evidence in my court case. So I'm just rewinding the case, going back to the protected disclosure, which is here. Just keep in mind what I was going through as the victim, and what my mindset was as the victim. All these things I knew in my heart was serious, and I knew a breach was serious, and I could just tell by my environment that what I was going through was serious, and I was definitely in a lockout situation, okay? So at that point of time, I've dated here 5th of May. This is the first starting point of when I lodged a protected disclosure. And I'd actually put Pastor King 2 letters that I had written to him, because I didn't know how to protect them, other than I wanted to stop the cybercrime from happening, because it was growing, okay? And working with the government, the only laws that were available to me at that point of time to stop a breach, okay? The Bible talks a lot about a breach. It talks about privacy, and a breach. Once a breach takes place, you can expect other people, with the wrong motive and intent. We're talking about criminal motive and intent here. So they've taken advantage of an individual, and the laws didn't work, unfortunately. So whether people within the church had betrayed the church, or just listened to gossip or whatever, but I knew that they had made a link to my workplace and internally government, okay? So my work environment got quite dangerous, and got quite hostile. Harassment was taking place, and at no point of time I can say I accepted it as normal, because it wasn't normal. Then I was, they used my bills to track me. I knew people were using my bills, the call centers. All that took place back then, which has been consistent to even now. Okay, so I was actually locked out. That's what the evidence will definitely show. I was locked out. So I had to put a protected disclosure in, because I was trying to stop the cybercrime from growing. And common senses, with my kind of background working, with indictable charges, high profile criminal cases, eventually, a breach will, become pretty dangerous. It's like a boat. When a boat leaks, the boat will sink, like the Titanic, and many civilians ended up, innocent civilians, at that point got were murdered, really, because of the carelessness of the captain or whoever is involved, of how that boat organised, whoever built that boat, or whatever procedure that they took at that point of time. So a breach is exactly the same with a corporate body, or with a government or an agency, when it's failed, the system has failed. Individuals or members of the public are getting murdered, or can't protect their own property, and now we've got this global game going on. Unfortunately, it falls on the CEO of the courts or the police and our prime minister. It's everything falls on them to protect the victims and the members of the public. So a vulnerable person is anybody innocent, anybody innocent, whether you're in government or whether you're a member of the public. So if you're having this lockout system where some people are locked out, and then we've got secret societies taking over, doing what they're doing to me historically, you know, we don't know who these people are, and why should they care whether I live or die? I mean, we're talking about criminal motive and intent. If they can get free money and use somebody to get their foot in the door to steal something, they will do it. So we're talking about motive and intent and this illegal system that I've been subject to. So going back to the evidence in 2010, I did submit a protected disclosure. This actually covers the church. And at that time, I was close to the elders of the church, okay? I don't believe in human sacrifice, okay? That is illegal in any generation. So, so we're going to have this criminal case and making it happen legally and globally. So what actually happened was I put this protected disclosure because I didn't know what to do. I was trying to protect my own family, and I knew people were stealing. I knew people were recording me. I knew I was being monitored. I knew I was being followed. And then I went through every single incident that is in my statement of claim against the Ministry of Justice, the Union, New Zealand Police, IPCA. Everything is true and correct, what actually happened to me. The whole idea of having laws is to stop a breach from accumulating. I knew people had passed away because of what I'd gone through, but that's not my fault. It hasn't done any favour for me that they haven't done anything about stopping it and protecting me from people continuing abusing me and trying to kill me and using me for money laundering. I feel like I've been continuously on a self-defense, and it's horrific. It's absolutely inhumane. So this is where Pastor King comes in, and legally by law, he's cleared of anything criminal. I was trying to protect him. It's just common sense. The first thing you do is protect your own family, protect your, the people that you love, protect your private life. Church was my private life. It had nothing to do with work. And I think all the honest people that worked with me knew that was my mindset. I was like that. I was that type of person. So just going to go through quickly just on the protected disclosure project or topic and why we actually have it. So there was definitely two letters in there. Keep in mind, I've had so many people come in and out, go through my documents like as if they, can do what they've been doing to me, but they're secretly, people were just using me, invading my private life and treating me invisible. And disrespecting my life just for their own personal gain. So there were definitely two letters. People may have misinterpreted it as, I've betrayed Pastor King, or I've turned on the church. I don't know. But when people actually put in protected disclosures or actual complaints, they're private and confidential information. But what I have done is that when I do submit my personal property, whatever that may be, in writing, people that are receiving it are actually linking themselves just through gossip, through members of your family, or through listening to your private conversation. And this is what has actually happened to me historically. But I only did that at that point of time to protect Pastor King and his wife. I mean, you can probably say maybe it was a bit of a little bit of family violence, but it wasn't really. Jealousy was happening in church, obviously. People had made me look like the mistress, and and he did fall in love with me, but spiritually, because he knew what I was going through, what people were doing to me. He understood spiritually where I was coming from, and so were other godly men and women at that point of time. Whereas you got the carnal people who, had misinterpreted everything and had taken advantage of an innocent civilians. However, the laws should have worked for me. Do I blame myself for what happened? No, because church was where I was rooted and born spiritually. At that point of time, I was a member and I grew up in there. And that is where my spiritual birth was. And it wasn't like I was living amongst strangers, but, there were a lot of godly men and women who agreed with what I was going through, could see quite clearly where I was coming from spiritually. But I think this is the appropriate time to basically talk about what I wanted to talk about was when, just hold on a moment. All right, so this here is basically a good verse to basically describe everything I've gone through. People have joined forces historically to basically eliminate me from earth, okay? So if you're spiritual, all these things have come true in regards to me. I can't bring I can't go back and change everything, but I believe I did what I could at that point of time. Okay, if you watch one of my other video clips on YouTube, I actually talked about a vision that God had actually given me. When I was working for the Department of Courts at that point of time, I got the job quite, honestly, I didn't cheat or anything. God led me to get it. I worked hard to get the job, and it was a challenge at that point of time whether I should take it on or not. So when I actually got the job, I was a court deputy registrar, like I said, and I did indictable charges at that point of time. I was quite dumbfounded is the word, quite stunned at the job that I had been led in to do. I was excited about the challenge, but I couldn't believe that God had led me in this job as a court deputy registrar. So in the first instance, I did do the job, and there was another guy who got the same job, same time as me, and he was a traveling consultant. I remember his name as being Steve. We started at the same time, but I can't remember his last name, but his name is actually Steve. I've actually written all this down in a journal. So basically, I'm really going to be talking about what the vision that took place at this point of time for me. At this time, my children were very young, still in school. Kimberly and Houston was still in intermediate, and Danny was just starting high school. We'd moved around a lot because of domestic violence, because it was a very unstable relationship with the children's father. His family supported me in everything they could. They know that our relationship, he was the bad, no, he ruined it himself because of his habits and all the rest of it. So what actually happened when I got this job, I got my, I had to relocate because I needed to get away again. I needed to relocate because of family violence. But at this point in time, I was working in Manuera Periodic Detention as an administration officer. I started off working at the Department of Courts, working at the Manukau Courts as a administration officer. That is the job role I did, and I started off working at Manukau District Courts. Was my first court. The job I got in the beginning was from my when I did my advanced certificate in business administration. I had to get a student loan, so part of the job was to get your foot in the door, like working for different departments. They give you an opportunity to give you a feel, or they will try you out, and if they like you, they'll give you a fixed job, a fixed contract, or a permanent role. So that's how I got my foot in the door, working for the government. So I did start off working at Community Probation Office first as a administration officer, and then I ended up I got a contract at the courts, and I worked there on a fixed contract, and I did quite well. Like everything I did really well. And then a permanent job came up working at the Manuera periodic detention. It was like a PA to my service manager. I did all the administration of a periodic detention, so I'm basically like working for the government for the defendants. Okay, so that was my role, working for the Department of Courts, it was called back then, and I worked at the Manuera periodic detention, which is quite a distance from when I was working from the church we were going to. So we were traveling back and forth with me and my children, because our heart was back at Church of Christ in Glen Eden, because that was our culture. We didn't really adjust to the South Auckland life, because that's where my children's family is from. But I was persistent, like still going back to church. I'm still human. I went through so much as a single, so much decisions. So that's how I kind of like got, my foot in the door working in the government. And so from there, I ended up, what did I end up doing? Because I wanted to relocate, because my kids were hitting teenage years at this point of time. I was having a tremendous stress problem with their father. He's living a double life, blah, blah, blah. He's also, had different secret relationships right from, so it was just not a good relationship. So from there, I actually ended up moving. I wanted to relocate the children back to where we're going, back to Glen Eden. And with that, I rang Pastor King. During this time, I'm constant, like Pastor King was like my confidant. He was the closest, like a father figure. We were that close. I just spiritually, I understood him, and he was tough on me, but he was able to do that because we were close. Okay, I'm a strong person. I don't put up abuse, but he, as time went on, I realized he was kind of like representing the people. Okay, so we had all these kind of things, but not always. He was, like I said, he was a man of God, and he was definitely moved, and the things we were close. So that's how close we were. He had the permission to do what he did, and yet he understood, and so were other people. This is like my spiritual training growing up. Don't ask me why I went along with it. I just knew that's God was just showing me gifts, like the things that I was learning in my personal life. When I did the advanced certificate in business administration, I had 3 young children. I was going through domestic violence, and then I had to do exams. And I realized I had an excellent memory, and I passed all my exams. I was like really thrilled. I was passing my exams, getting 100%, and I was doing quite well under the condition I was working on, but I'd learned to discipline myself. And then I just kind of like, I've got a pretty good memory with stuff. And I realized, that was just another gift I had. But then, anyway, as time went on, I had to relocate because of family violence, and I wanted to get my children away from that area and bring them up in church, because by this time my oldest son was hitting teenage years, and he none of my kids had it easy. Okay, they've really worked hard for what they have achieved themselves today, and I am so proud of them, because they have missed out on me on so many things. They know that they have been my world, but I've had to trust God in our journey and do what I've had to do to fulfill God's purpose in my life. So what actually happened was what did I do? I found us a little place. We actually moved. I found us a little place near my mum. And then I was traveling all the way to Manuera periodic detention, and then I was trying to find a job as close as I can back, to Henderson, so I didn't have to travel day and night, and so all that kind of commotion going on. And I was still, Anyway, so what happened was, I eventually got us a little place, and we relocated back in Henderson, so that I was able to bring the kids back to church, because I wanted Danny to be influenced by the godly men in the church at Church of Christ, and that is where most of Daniel's friends are from, and that is the background Danny is actually used to, and Kim in Houston too, but those two, like each child, have had different struggles and have missed out on quite a bit because of what I've gone through, but I've just had to trust God in what, for their well-being, safety, while God was using me for other things. What happened was, eventually I got a job working for the courts. I applied in the paper. I actually had several job interviews, which I did well. And by the time I got my foot in the door for working for Department of Courts, I got the job advertised in a Herald, and I applied for it that way. And I got shortlisted, and then I went to a panel interview, and I did pretty well. I thought I was going to get it, and then I got discouraged when I didn't get it. But God works in a miraculous way, and when the lady rang me, her name was Colleen Binns at that time. Actually, Mark Devereaux was the one that rang me to let me know how the interview went, and he said he was pretty impressed and he thought I was pretty good, and he wanted to recommend me for another jurisdiction. That was always, the turnover was pretty bad, that nobody wanted to stay in that jurisdiction, because I didn't know why, but he just said the turnover wasn't, they couldn't get anyone to stay at that job long enough. So he wanted to recommend me because I'd already gone through the panel interview, and he thought I would be a good candidate. So I said, yeah, sure. But I was discouraged when he did, because I thought, because I had kind of because I knew that the interview went well. But then I sort of when he said I didn't get it, and then I thought he was just ringing me to be nice, and I didn't want to get my hopes up high. And he said, look, the job is a deputy court registrar and a jury trial depositions, and I couldn't even pronounce the word because it didn't mean anything to me at all. I had no idea or a clue what kind of job it was, and I just thought, yeah, okay, thanks. But as it happened, he rang me, the female lady rang me the next week, and she said to me, look, Mark Devereaux gave me your CV, those kind of words. She was just introducing herself and asked me to go in for an interview. And I was like, oh, okay. I was excited because I thought because I had actually told God at this point of time, I said, Lord, if I don't get this job, because I was burnt out, I was stressed to the max. I had 3 young children to look after, and then I had to what did I, and then I was having domestic issues with their father. So, but I was just focusing on the now at that point in time, and focusing on moving forward and trusting God to open doors for me. So with that, I went to the interview, and the lady at the interview said to me, "Well, how are you? Are you assertive? And, how are you at being assertive?" And I says, "Oh, I can be assertive if I want to be." But I had no clue what kind of job I was going to be doing. And I thought to myself, "Oh, maybe I'm just going to be doing admin work, office work, typing or something like that," because I had the background and I had good reference. And that's how I got my job working for the Department of Courts. But then after 2 weeks training into the job, I was horrified. I was like, to myself, I was like, praying to God, like, this is not, I was like, just the whole realm and the authority, it frightened me. Just because when they did the training, they said, "Look, you'll be working with judges, you'll be working, with the criminal crown." Like, I was going to be working with real top-notch people, and that didn't really kind of hit me till I actually did the job. And here I am, just like, okay. But inside of me, I was scared. I was absolutely petrified. And I was like, I can't believe God had drawn me into this job. So, I had no choice. I had to go through it. I felt God had wanted me to go through it, and I had no choice. I needed a job. I needed to be closer to home because of the kids. My routine had to change. I had 3 kids. And so I stayed at this job, and this other guy, his name was Steve, he started the same time as me. We did the training together. He too, when you actually do court work, unless you've got some idea of the background involving court cases or anything to do with court, it's foreign language. It's very stressful work. It's mind blowing. It's just like you either sink or swim. Okay, so the guy that I started with, he ended up leaving, I think 4 weeks after me and him were in the training, and he ended up being on Prozac because he said he just couldn't do it. The job was too hard. It was daunting. We were trained old school method, and everything had to be perfect. And at that point in time, I had a stuttering problem. When I get nervous publicly, or anything, I stutter. I just go blank. Like, it's like being stage fright, and I was like that at this job. And as I was doing my training and being introduced to prominent men and women judges at that time, and I was just so words cannot explain how overwhelmed I was at the awesomeness of what God was putting me through. I didn't understand it. I wanted to run away, to be totally honest. At this point in time, God was also using me in church, but God was showing me something. I nearly did give up. I nearly did quit the job because it was hard. Because I had to open court. All of a sudden, I was put in, like, when you're a court deputy registrar, you open court, and you're dealing with actual real life cases, okay, like real life murder cases, real life serious fraud cases, real life sexual violation cases. I had to read out words in court that I would never say, but I had to say words like, when it's sexual violation cases, that such and such put his penis in her vagina, and those kind of things. And then the evidence was like pornographic, but it was real. It was real. So that was kind of the job I was trained to do, and I ended up really enjoying it actually, and I mastered it. But I think on my first or second murder cases and sexual violation cases, when I started taking those, I wanted to run away. I could not believe the things I was reading, the things, because it was real. It was real cases and murder cases and handling the exhibits. And it was just one time, it was just too much for me. And I remember closing the court, and I said to God, no, I was by myself. I don't want to do this, Lord. I don't want to do this. Like, I wanted to leave the job. It was just too overwhelming. And with that, God spoke to me. I feel God, the Holy Spirit spoke to me, and he said to me, and you thought you had problems, Mina. And so basically God was just saying to me, because I did have problems. I had major problems. But then what God was showing me was that there are other people who had bigger problems than me, but I had no excuse, to deal with my problems, compared to other people who's had it worse and they didn't have God. I feel that was like a turning point conviction for me, my job, when I had that personal encounter at that point of time. At that point of time, I also felt like the Holy Spirit said to me, my people. I didn't understand that either. But my job, it changed me. It changed my way of thinking. I didn't see life's journey how I used to. And I didn't understand it, but I knew God wanted me to stick out my job. I knew God wanted me to put up with whatever came my way, no matter how difficult it was. He was disciplining me and he was training me. And the job was a kind of job you are humiliated. And I was humiliated heaps of times, in front of, taking courts. But I ended up mastering it. I had a really good person who trained me really well, the old school way. And I was trained to know the laws, trained to abide to the laws. And the judges were our first priority to make sure that, that they got everything correctly. And I did pretty well. I ended up got a really good reference from the chief judge at that point in time. They were quite sad that I left, but, because of circumstances, I had no choice because I had to put my family first, my children first. I actually ended up mastering the job. I loved it. And I knew that if I had stayed there, I could do well, but I was becoming a little bit ambitious because it's easy to do. And I just I ended up really loving the job. And there was just so much learning I learnt with the job, and but God was actually training me for this, for so many other things down the line. But as my jobs changed, I recall telling Pastor King that when I was working for Pack and Save, I did checkout operating. I'd done lots of jobs before the courts. And then when one day I said to him, I'm working at courts and I'm working amongst judges and that, and he looked at me like I didn't know whether he believed what I said, he was always the first person that I would confide to. Like, he was my confidant. Like, I trusted him I loved him, and yeah, and I basically used to ring him about everything and anything, just to get his opinion and just to get his see what he has to say. But one thing's for sure, Pastor King has never done. He has never told me what I have to do. He's always let me make a decision. I think there was just one time he put his foot down on me about one thing, but I'm glad he did that because it helped me make the right decision. But overall, historically, as my relationship with him, he has never said, "Don't do this, Mina. Don't do that, Mina." He's given me advice and then he's let me make the decision on one thing, except for one thing that he told me when I was talking to him about. He got mad at me, and I won't disclose it because it's quite private, but it made me make the right decision because I needed it. Like sometimes you got to do tough love, especially if you have that that access and but yeah, he loved me like his own daughter. He really did, and he loved my kids like his own, and that's the kind of relationship we had back then. And you can't forget where you come from, and that's something I've always told my kids. Don't forget where you come from. It's easy to do. I used to always do things on Father's Day. I used to write him letters. We were that close, but unfortunately, as time went on, people, little did I know, were defaming, misreading what I was going through, and now I can actually confirm everything that I was going through secretly. They were using the relationship scam and the public, whatever everyone was doing, working together to take an individual down. So as time went on, human nature, it just got there. Whatever the whole idea of what everyone did to me, it just got worse and worse and worse. A criminal alliance was taking place. I was this type of person at work where I just minded my own business. I knew that there were witches. I was working with different, people from different cultures and stuff. And what people don't realize is some cultures are very staunch about their beliefs, and unfortunately, they took advantage of an innocent person while working at work. I didn't, I just minded my own business, but it was definitely a left behind case, and people just started taking advantage of using me, twinning and switching, and through the whole thing, it just got quite dangerous and very serious. And little did I know I was actually being animated and being used for movie ideas, so that is what I've gone through globally, and this is my story. But the negative alliance is definitely connected to those women. Okay. Those women linked to my court cases, linking to everything else. They are the ones gaining the benefit and being helped by a negative alliance to steal. So behind this alliance, we've got mean people operating in the flesh. So that is how the global game actually operate behind the criminal alliances, or behind the people monitoring us. Can be anybody, but they're mean. They're actually the things that they've done to me. It's just a game, and I'm the object. So the unfortunate reality, it is a trafficking ring case that I've been subject to historically. It is a left behind incidents involving myself, and they've actually been using. It's like being a monopoly. They've used me like I'm hard out doing my court cases. but they're secretly stealing my intellectual property, and other people are actually benefiting from it, and it's been inhumane. So the twinning and the switching, the alliance, they study people and then they cleave to their soul, or cleave to everything they're doing. They're studying their personality, then they're using doubles to divert, or using somebody in your family to divert. But the whole idea, or the end result for the originals, is that they're actually character assassination. Okay, so the whole idea of what they're doing is they're secretly defaming that individual, and eventually to turn off other people. And some I have to say some religions and some cultures have taken that advantage, because obviously they all know that I'm a Christian, and they've taken advantage of, being able to hurt someone or to eliminate them just because of my belief, and obviously for historical, crimes that's actually taken place on myself. So this is what the game entails. It is a demolishing of a human being, and the whole idea is to eliminate myself, and that is what they've done to me historically. Like defame person's characters, and it doesn't stop until the right people actually step in and take over. So now my case is definitely participation in criminal group, directly or indirectly, and we're looking at motive and intent of the body corporate or the individual. The whole idea is, where people forget you even existed, but search warrants can still be made and subpoena everybody to come to court. So this is what my case actually falls on. I'll probably leave this one here now. I will go on to the other relationship scams on the next clip. But yeah, because this video clip is getting a little bit too long, so I will just leave it at this for now. So as the individual, the whole idea is they make you eat your word, and they're like, they're sabotaging everything. Like as soon as something positive happens, they sabotage it. Then you end up being hurt or distressed. So it's definitely intentional, making everyone that's monitoring me actually they are, what do you call, sorry, I'm a bit tired. Hang on. Making everybody that has locked me out actually suspects in my case, okay? Because there's no such thing as lockout. Believe you me, we're going to make it happen. So I will leave it at this for this scenario, but I will continue on with the others involving my court case and linking them to the relationship scams to the evidence in my court case. So I just finished with this. Finished this last here about being authentic. Okay, so I am a Christian, and I do believe in the Bible, and I just want to give God the glory for everything to do with me and my journey, and the massive miracles that I know that He has brought me out of. And I'm open-minded to God's leading, whatever that may be in the future. So just for those that are doing what they're doing, it's illegal what yous are doing. Okay, you don't have the right to represent somebody or sabotage somebody. It's illegal what you've all done, and I just know that I'm within my place to tell my story, and also for the purpose to help others who are innocent civilians who are unaware of all these things that people are actually doing, secret societies are actually doing. These people behind the scene, they're still human beings, but we're talking about organized crimes, and we're talking about motive and intent, criminal motive and intent. And with the expert knowledge that I am blessed with, nothing is impossible to undo. It's like indictable cases, like example rape. It doesn't matter whether it's 20 years ago, 40 years ago, or anything to do with war crimes. It doesn't matter if it's that long. Everybody in my caliber, working for the government and the criminal laws and that, everything can be brought to surface, and people can actually be made accountable. The whole idea is to make sure it doesn't happen, it doesn't continue on onto other innocent civilians.